Welcome back to Veterans Beyond the Wire. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me is the one, the only Mr. Matt Disher. And we have a fun guest this week, Mr. Dave Simmons. So,
Simons.
Dave, how are you? Simons. I apologize. Dave, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you, man. So we definitely have some fun stuff we want to talk about with you. But as we've been doing now for a few weeks, we wanted to hit some news. Matt and I were scrolling through military.com as we do to try to find some news articles. And sadly, Matt and I both got excited when we saw the first article we both liked, and that was the surprise Die Hard sequel that was coming out to save 2020. You read the article and you find out it's just a series of Die Hard battery commercials he's doing, playing John McClane in the commercials. But
it's clickbait. But, you got to wonder, how old is Bruce Willis now?
172.
He's got to be up there.
He's been bald as long as I've known him, and so that's been at least 30 years probably.
Yeah,
he's been bald.
Yeah, we were watching Die Hard movies when what was the first Die Hard? Mid 80s?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So that's a long time ago now. That's a long time ago. That's back when they were still station wagons, those old station wagons with the rear-facing back seats and the wood panels on the side.
I've sat
That's how far back that goes. Yeah.
That's considered a Christmas movie now.
It is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It is a Christmas movie. Yeah.
You make one of the biggest action films of all time, and it just happens to be around the Christmas season. Man, it qualifies as a Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah. And every year you start seeing these articles again, going back to the fake news and the duffel blogs and things like that we were talking about before we went live. The fake article that comes out that there's some sort of siege at the Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles. Yes. And people are like, oh my gosh, another one of these attacks, huh?
Yeah.
It's both sad and funny at the same time.
It is. I've been scrolling through a social media outlet or two, and I've seen. I'm like, oh wait, just a second. For 1 second, I'm like, oh no, oh yeah, I'm dumb. I'm just an idiot.
I can't believe that this is happening again every year. So the other bit of news that we saw here was that Terminal Lance is added to the Marine Corps Commandant's reading list. So if you know the reading list, that's the books that the content that the Commandant recommends you reading. Mm-hmm. Terminal Lance is now added to that content. If you're unfamiliar with Terminal Lance, it is hilarious cartoons from satirical situations in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it's they're fun. They take certain topics that can be touchy at times, and they make a little fun at it, twist them a little certain way to make you kind of smile. So the fact that the Commandant has that on his reading list, I find that to be very interesting, obviously. But there are plenty of other actual like professional and military-based reading that is on his list. But the fact that Terminal Lance made it is it's fun. I think it shows that he's got a sense of humor.
The shammers are finally being highlighted,
Right. Well, you mentioned legitimate professional content like Duffel Blog.
Yeah. Yes. You mentioned the Nakatomi Plaza post that you see around the holidays. It's always fun when you see somebody repost something from the Duffel Blog, like, I can't believe this, or why would they ever do something like this? It's like, oh, you don't understand. This isn't real.
You're new here.
Yeah.
So the other one is that the Pentagon estimates the cost of new nuclear missiles at the low price for a limited time of $95.8 billion. I don't know if this is a buy one, get one, or I don't know how that conversation happens when the Air Force or the Navy decides to start negotiating rates for nuclear missiles. But Tim, I think you said that they were $10 billion less 4 years ago. So what do you think happened in the meantime?
One of the big time nuke upstarts really went underground. They lost some funding, so they're relying on the old reliables, and they're like, hey, we're the only game in town anymore. So if you want these nukes, it's another 10 million or 10 billion. I'm sorry, 10 billion off of what we were quoting you 4 years ago.
Well, Well, it's no secret that the nuclear missile companies have really stepped up their marketing games, and their marketing budgets have gone up by the billions. So that's why every time you turn on YouTube, can't pass up the old ICBM commercial.
I was going to say, we brought up Armed Forces TV on a prior episode. I wonder if they're running ads on like Armed Forces TV, like, hey, act now, get these nukes. Save before Thanksgiving. If you buy before Thanksgiving, $95.8 billion.
It's kind of like when you go to the suit store. If you ever look at the price tags on the suits, they are like one suit is like $1,000, but it's buy one get three free, and you're like, bro, I'm paying $1,000. I'm buying 3 and getting 1 for free. So I wonder if that's the price. Maybe it's the $94 billion is also maybe it is. It's a $94 billion deal, but you buy 1 and get 3 free.
I mean, reading the article, I didn't know that we had 400 Minutemen missiles currently in our fleet. They're in silos in, I believe I read Wyoming, Kansas, Colorado, out there in the good old Rocky Mountain area.
Yeah.
There goes the OPSEC.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting the Russians know exactly.
Oh,
now
it's on an article
where they
on
are.
military.com. I'm not breaking any news here.
I've always heard that the scariest part of this, and again, I'm no like military strategist or anything like that, but the scariest part of nuclear weapons is the ones that they have inside the submarines that nobody knows where they are. They could be sitting off your coast. So Russia's over here going, they're in Montana. But meanwhile, there's like 3 submarines just sitting off their coast waiting to fire some missiles in.
And if that's where they're telling us these are, there's got to be other places where they're not saying they are,
Yeah,
or
your
they're not
neighbor's
there
house
at all.
folds out. Your neighbor's house folds out, and there's a side you never even knew it existed.
They're not in Montana or Colorado. They're actually in Los Angeles. And the big hole in the middle of the Pentagon, like the courtyard? That's where they are.
It just opens up and let her rip. Just opens up and let her rip. But Dave, we wanted to bring you on and talk about some of the things you are doing for veterans. You check in with us on a weekly basis. Let us know you're checking us out as we go live, and we appreciate that so much. Thank you so much, sir. But let's talk a little bit about you and what you're doing. So, Dave, let's talk about the military, why you joined, when you joined, and what made you join.
Well, so I grew up in Virginia Beach. My father was a warrant officer in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Navy. My mom's side, my grandfather was in the British Army. I just grew up around, if you're familiar with Virginia Beach, you've got Norfolk, which is one of the world's largest naval bases. You've got Langley Air Force Base there. There's Dam Neck. There's Little Creek. You got
Annapolis isn't too far away.
Annapolis isn't too far away. And then you got Yorktown. I mean, it's just a Navy, military, because you got everybody's there, from all four branches. Plus they got a large contingency of NATO has a large contingency there too. So I grew up around it. I for as long as I can remember, I knew that was my path. I'm going in the military. Was shooting for joining the Navy to become a fighter pilot and become an officer. And, basically around when I was 17, I was like, wait, that's 4 more years of schooling. And, I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna throw a wrench in the system, which my dad really, really loved the idea of me just becoming a Marine grunt. So I went ahead and joined the Marines and surprised everybody. Did 4 years with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, stationed out at 2-9. This was directly out of high school. 1995 is when I joined. Got out just prior to, September 11th and all that stuff going on. And, it's one of those things when you're in there, you're going, man, this sucks. And then you get out and you go, that was the best time of my life. Why did I ever get out? So yeah, I spent some years going to college, tried my hand doing multitude of different jobs, ended up owning my own business, but was just not too fulfilled with the way life was going. And then with the world climate, I was always sitting there going, you know, I feel like I was the fourth string quarterback, you know, just sitting there going, what am I doing? You know, I should be a part of this, you know. Being a Marine, you're sort of, you know, you're always taught in the Marines, you're the tip of the spear, you're the best. All the other services are here. We're at right here, you know. So I tried to join the Marines again, and you know, things didn't work out. At that time, I had 4 kids. You know, I had a college degree, but you know, we had some different tattoo policies a few years later, and they were like, "Look, you're hitting your waiver max. You're not coming back in." You know, I was a little jaded at that time, going, I couldn't believe, you know, I'm a trained grunt wanting to go back in during time of war, and you're not allowing it, you know.
Yeah.
So I started my process of, you know, I was looking at going into the Army, going back into whatever I could, National Guard, you know. This is about the time where I met Matt, because I was working at Recruit Military at that time, which was great, because that I took that job because that was a part of what I was looking for, that camaraderie, working with other like-minded guys and veterans. So at that time, I was putting resumes and different things to go and be a security contractor. That was my way of continuing to serve. So that hit, and I went overseas with a private company doing diplomatic security in Afghanistan for roughly about 6.5 years. I was injured over there, and that kind of led me to where I'm at now, because I found myself back in that place, being injured, sort of, to lack of better words, being half the man I used to be. And now I'm worried about paying my bills and being a role model to my kids. And that's what spawned the whole idea of, you know, being 40, 42 at the time, 41 when I got hurt. You're not entering the job market. You know, we've got more than a decade of security type skills. And now that the body is not keeping up with your mentality, you know, your training and the things that you can do, it's a hard transition. You know, you're definitely not just going to jump over and get a job at, you know, one of the security companies and come in as a upper echelon manager, even though you have all the experience. And, you know, you're starting at,
you're starting
$7-8 an hour.
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Yeah. I think that is a tough transition. As everything you've done for years, everything you've trained for years, and age just catches up. You know, you the things you used to do and be able to wake up and do again the next day, you wake up and go, oh God, this hurts. Yeah. This, you know, I can't run today. I can't lift today. I can't do this. And I think that's just where we have to change the mentality a little bit. We're not always going to be these 18-year-old warriors that can run around, you know. And I know that there were days where I could drink all night and get up at, you know, 2 hours sleep and go on a 5-mile run. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm still an 18-year-old.
I have probably younger than that mentality at times. I'll tell you that. Right. But physically, I'm no longer there.
So Dave, let me back up for a second, because you were at 29 Palms, right? Did I hear that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you didn't say enough is enough after having been in 29 Palms. You wanted some more.
I need more.
You know, 29 Palms gets a bad gig. I tell you, I love that duty station.
Really? I mean, what about it? What about it did you love?
I love the isolation of it. You know, you're
okay.
You're on your own. Back at that time, I think comm school was only there for a little bit. It was pretty much all grunts. You were 2 hours from Vegas, 2 hours from going to LA, Havasu, Mexico, you know, so every weekend it was a different plot on a map, and let's go there, you know. And then when the weekend's done, you hot-tailed back to 29 Palms and you told everybody, yeah, I can't talk to you. I'm going back to 29 Palms, and we'll just leave it at that, like,
right.
As far as,
and I think you're right. It probably does get a bad rap. I was stationed at Pendleton on the north end of Camp Pendleton, just outside of San Clemente, which is like an awesome surfing town, So we'd go out into Southern California with our silly haircuts and our Marine Corps shirts on, and everybody would know we were Marines. But unlike like Camp Lejeune, for example, everybody knew you were a Marine. You went out in town, everybody knows you're a Marine. Mm-hmm. The stigma follows you around. Everybody else there is a Marine too, because in Lejeune, it's the one base in the woods, right? In SoCal, you are among millions of other people, and so you could go out and do that. But the thing about 29 Palms is I did like a double CAX there, and it was 2 months of sleeping on the ground and just being dirty. And it was, hot as heck during the day and freezing cold at night. But we weren't sleeping in barracks, and we didn't have any of the creature comforts. It was do a different operation every day. Like this infantry unit's rolling in, they're gonna do an assault course, go be their engineers and blow up their stuff for them. We do that day after day after day.
I was gonna say, I think the reason 29 Palms gets such a bad rap is because anybody that's not stationed there, like Matt said, isn't getting to stay in the barracks. You're normally out there in the middle of nothing. You're lucky if maybe once every couple weeks you get a PX run. So,
I'll tell you, with 29 Palms, imagine, and I know you guys had these officers that always had these great ideas and wanted to do Adventure Time. So you keep talking about the barracks, but imagine having an officer and having 29 Palms as your disposal. You didn't see the barracks that much. It was like, what?
We're gonna go play.
Generally, Monday through Friday, you were out in the field. If not for longer, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. Which, we were running up Sugar Cookie and running Dragon's Back, and I've been to Pendleton a lot too, and I know the hills in Pendleton will kick your butt. But it was just, looking back on it, it was it made you a little harder. It just was like you're living that suck life,
right?
Day in and day out. And I kind of wouldn't trade it, but that's also the kind of reason I decided to get out, because I was getting all these opportunities as far as re-enlistment packages and stuff, and most of them had me staying in 29 Palms. And I was like, you know what? I want to see the rest of the place.
Well, you wanted to go to Lejeune and see the woods.
Well, I did. I was East Coast guy, so I went to Paris Island and I did SOI in Lejeune, and that's not far from where I grew up. So I was like, get away from Lejeune.
Yeah. It's as a matter of fact, when I was in my MOS school, they gave us the little wish list. Hey, put down your top 3 duty stations you'd like to go to, and we'll tell you you're crazy and we'll put you where we want anyways. But I got lucky. The first one I did put down was Camp Pendleton. Was an East Coast kid my whole life, and
same.
I was like, I want to go see the other side of this. I want to go see what's over there, and I was lucky and I got to go. But I got to spend a couple months in 29 Palms. It's the one place in the world that during the day you'd be sweating, and then a few hours later you'd be in a foxhole, on fire patrol doing security, and all of a sudden it's snowing. And it was Christmas Eve, and it started snowing on us in a foxhole. And you got 17 layers on, and you're still just shivering. You can't get warm.
Chilled to the bone.
And I had
chilled to the bone.
A sergeant that place you could see when the sun goes down or comes up. You could just wait a few seconds and feel that wind change, and everything like, okay, here it comes.
I had a sergeant get on the radio and start singing "Let It Snow," and I wanted to lose my mind. I was like, "You're sitting back in the tent, and you looked outside and saw it snow, and now you're gonna." Wasn't fun, but
no.
So Dave, you got out of the service. You tried to join back up. They said too many waivers. You looked at the Army. Wait, did the Army tell you no to, or you decided?
No, I was actually they had me set to I was actually, when I got the call to go down to the vetting course, I was set to go to MEPS that Friday. I was set to go swear back in for their 18 X-ray program, which is that special forces selection type deal. Doesn't guarantee that, but they were just like a lot of good Marines have come in to the it was for the National Guard 19th or 20th group, if I remember correctly, and they said, hey, this could be a good path for you, and I was all about that, and got a call from a company that said basically, and it was kind of funny working at Recruit Military at the time, which leads me, I got my degree in graphic communications. So I was actually getting in trouble at Recruit Military for doing some photoshopping and creating some flyers that probably shouldn't have been out there.
Continue.
So I was sitting in the Larry's office. Larry runs Recruit Military, a Marine captain, and he's kind of going, "Did you do this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did." And he kind of was looking at me going, "I didn't expect you to admit to it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did it. By the way, I have to quit today." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I gotta be in Texas on Friday. I picked up a contract. I'm going back in with this contracting company." And he, that kind of floored him, but that's what it was. It was basically, I was set to go swear in at MEPS on that Friday anyway. But I didn't have to quit Recruit Military because that was selection process going up to Columbus, Ohio at the time, and meeting with the sergeant major, getting some prep before selection, and the contracting thing just kind of popped off real quick. Which the contracting thing to me became that next echelon of, like I told you, you kind of, I don't want to say brainwashed, but you're a Marine, you're a Marine, you're a Marine. You're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And so then contracting, I got to work with guys from every branch, top-notch individuals, and it really broadened my horizons a lot. And you're working in a lot of small teams. So, I consider that kind of a next echelon of training.
You were doing that for 6 years, you said?
Yeah, from 2010 is when I went to the first vetting course there. Finally hit boots on ground sometime during 2011. In August of 2016 is when I got injured. So,
were you overseas the whole time, or most of that time?
Well, it all depends on your contract, and I was basically on the same, what they call task order, the whole time. But we flip shirts all the time. The government loves their plausible deniability, where one contracting company is like, "Ooh, you messed up and had an article written about you, so we'll change the name of the company," and everybody, "Here's your new shirt,"
Right. We do that around here. When the podcast doesn't sound good, we just change the name and change shirts.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I will not change a shirt anymore. I'm going to wear the same shirt from now on. I don't care how bad it stinks. Yeah, I'm just continuing on.
Matt, I don't hate that idea. I think we should possibly change the name to the Joe Rogan Experience and see if that helps.
It might up the followers a little.
Yeah,
let's call it Drinking Brothers Podcast.
Yeah, just see what happens.
Yeah.
People will show up and be pleasantly unsurprised, or pleasantly surprised, pleasantly disgusted,
unpleasantly,
right?
Yeah. But
I mean, we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah. One or two more.
It just takes one fantastic guest to really push your numbers.
And this is going to be it right here.
We've got him here. It's Dave Simons.
Hey, like I said, I didn't have makeup come in, so I'm hoping the lighting's good and stuff. But,
you look fantastic, Dave. Couldn't look better.
Beard, I'm jealous of the beard. I tried to grow a beard. So when we first started this podcast, I had this really bad quarantine beard going on.
Good.
People often mistook me for the guy who is selling them their drugs. So I got rid of it.
Mine's getting that homeless look. I mean, I keep trying to get it, but I think I'm just getting old, and you know,
It does what it wants now.
It does. And
you used to be able to like, trim
getting,
it.
getting that sigh from Duck Dynasty beard that just kind of pulls to the right or left, and you know,
yeah. When we first started this, every time we got on, I'd look at Matt and be like, "Hey, what are you selling? You got anything?" No.
He'd start twitching, and it was really weird. It was really awkward.
Scratching.
Yeah. Hey, man.
You got some crack?
So, Dave, you got out of doing the security thing, and where'd life take you after that?
Well, that's what led me on this path, because when you're doing something like that, you always think that you're going to be taken care of. You know, that wasn't so much of the case. You know, I remember getting home, and what ended up happening is my back has got a few vertebrae that need to be welded together at this point, and what they call the annulus around it is split out and let my nerve endings kind of come out of the bottom. And then during that whole injury, my shoulder went out, and I was just a mess, you know. So I'm sitting at home, and I just got off the plane, and basically they said somebody will contact you. And after about a month of me trying to call the company and trying to figure out what's going on, I thought I was wheelchair bound. Like I'm talking not moving. Family and kids are helping me do everything. And after about a month, I decided to get a lawyer, and that started the process. And then it was 2.5, 3 years process of constant fighting, constant battling. You're supposed to get a little disability medical stipend because you get the best of both worlds. It's sort of a mix of military with private insurance. With it's all under what's called the Defense Base Act. And what's awesome is, you know, you spend months and months of training and getting background checks and making sure that you're a good enough individual that you can stand next to these diplomats and be trusted, and you're trustworthy. There's, you know, and the second you get hurt, you're an untrustworthy individual. We think you're lying, you know, go through this whole process. And I actually ended up having to get Senate and Congress involved in my case. And as soon as I did that, the insurance company was like, "Hey, do you want to settle out? You know, like, we're not going to fix you, but we'll just let you, let's wash." Contracting companies, again, they don't like, you know, any bad press.
Here's some money that'll take care of the pain.
Yeah. Which doesn't fix. So what led me here is I'm sitting on the couch, like I said, feeling like I'm half the man. You know, I have a design degree, but I haven't used it in 10 years because I've been running and gunning. So there's no portfolio. There's no way to kind of get back in that industry. You know, what do I do now? You know, how do I feed my family? And I've always sort of kept doing things for fun on the side. When I was overseas, I started Point Blank Apparel, which was like a veteran, you know, grunge style-esque, AR-15-esque, you know. And that was limited. I was in Afghanistan, so running everything from Afghanistan, it was more of a creative outlet and something to do. You can only go to the gym so much. You know, when you're over there, you're like, all right, let me find something else out to do. But yeah, guys really enjoyed my designs. They would come by and go, "Why are you not making this?" You know, and I'm like, I don't know. This isn't, I wouldn't really wear it. I mean, it's just a fun design, you know. And they're like, "Make it, people will buy it," you know. And so I had a background in the apparel stuff a little bit, you know, being run remotely. So, you know, the whole time where you're sitting there worried about paying your bills and you're looking at everything that you've worked so hard for so long, kind of teetering on the edge of foreclosure, and every month it was whether or not the lights were going to be on, you know. And I just got done. I mean, contracting, you made really good money, you know,
Yeah.
especially for a knuckle dragger. I should have never been making that amount of money, you know. But I was making really good money, and then it just came to a head-on collision, which at the time I was home for a couple months, still going through that process. My wife was head-on by a drunk driver. So we're both sitting there. Our kids are taking care of us, and we're just looking at each other like, what are we going to do? You know, it made you feel like you're drowning, you know, and that's where I kind of, you know, I had the thing that saved me, because there were some very dark moments, you know. So the thing that saved me was my other brothers, my other veteran brothers that called on me, that flew up from around the country to sit with me for a weekend and kind of help me out, you know, like, and we're not talking like help with money, although there was some guy in Florida I'd never met in my life, but I guess he heard what was going on with me, and I get a letter and there's a check in there, and he says, hey, please accept this gift. Both my sons, I'm a successful businessman. Both my sons are in the military. I hate to hear what you're going through. Hopefully this helps out, you know, and it brought me to tears, you know.
Awesome.
So I started, in those dark moments, I started understanding, you know, we have a huge epidemic of veteran suicide.
We do.
I mean, I can't even tell you how many guys I know that decided that it was time to end their life. I can't even count on both hands in the last couple of years, you know. And I felt like I understood that, you know. And I had one guy call me up and he said, Dave, you're not thinking about doing nothing stupid, are you? And I said, well, I wrote a letter. I don't plan on doing anything, but I wrote the letter in an aspect of, I understand where these guys are coming from. So I wanted to write this letter to show, maybe use as a tool to show other people what that darkness is like, you know. And he called me out. You know, he said, look, dude, if you're writing letters, you're like one step away. You're already starting to talk yourself into that mode, you know. And you know, that was a gut check for me. You know, I just kind of sat back and I said, maybe I am going a little too far down this path. And so that's when I started thinking I need to find something else. I need to find purpose, you know. And that's when I came up with the idea for not only, you know, my new apparel line is a fishing apparel line called BTFU Fishing. And that was done for the sole purpose to help fund the nonprofit, which is the Above the Waterline Foundation, which the name comes from. I want to help guys that are drowning right now get above that waterline. We have a good group of veterans locally and across the country that have got on board with this. You know, there's so many aspects that right now we're trying to fine tune it a little bit, because to me, it's such a broad thing. I mean, veteran suicide's a huge thing to tackle, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we tackle it? You know, what I thought of is, with the fishing apparel and the fishing, like that whole saying, you know, there's, you know, a good day of fishing or a bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work. You know, can we take that mentality and apply that to just life, you know? And if I can get guys out on a fishing boat with other veterans away from the noise, maybe we can, you know, start building that camaraderie that I experienced with recruit military, that I experienced in the military, that I experienced in contracting. You get all these like-minded individuals, and when you know, just like this podcast, you know, Tim, we never met before this podcast, but we can conversate. We have common ground, you know, where, so let's build upon that. And some of our struggles are what do you do when you get off the boat?
Mhm.
You know, there's tons of nonprofits and charities that will take guys hunting and fishing and outdoors, and but that's it, right? Like you go fishing with a bunch of guys, you have a great time, and then you go back home and you're still sitting there. And to me, it could almost exacerbate it, because you're like, man, I miss that kind of thing. How do I get that? You know?
Mhm.
So, you know, BTFU, it stands for Bait the F Up. And that's kind of, you know, pick yourself up by the bootstraps.
Mhm.
And what I tell people, it's a very veteran mentality fishing apparel line, you know? So I tell people, you know, you get a lot of pushback. What's that F? You know, what's that? You know, and I say, well, it stands for freedom, food, fun, friends, family,
Whatever you want it to stand
Yeah.
for.
whatever the F you want it to be, you know, like,
Right.
so that's the mentality of the line, which that sole purpose was, you know, and this is all, we've been doing this for about a year, trying to get everything off the ground and moving.
Mhm.
And so I'm learning a lot as I go. But my idea was, I don't want to start a charity and go out there and fundraise, and people say, well, what's this money for? And I go, well, you know, some of it's for my salary so I can feed my
Right.
family, you know.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
is a way where I can have the business, and that will help fund the nonprofit, which is two separate things, you know, completely
Mhm.
different entities. But yeah, we have a little tagline. It's called, we say, live to fish another day.
Mhm.
And you know, the military, we love our acronyms. So I've broken FISH. That stands for find a mission, initiate the mission, survive the battle, and happy and healthy living.
That's very SMEAC like. It's very 5-paragraph order.
Yeah.
Yeah, BAMSIS,
I like it,
you
Dave.
know?
BAMSIS. Right. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, that's essentially, you know, when I'm just relying on what I know. So when it comes to writing this stuff up for the nonprofit and making the tax man happy and filing all this paperwork, and that's right what you said. I mean, write a 5-paragraph order, because then I can hand that to the tax people and they go, okay, we hit all our bullet points.
Can you put that on a shirt?
What's that?
Can you put that on a shirt?
That?
Yeah, fish.
Yeah. We have it on. It's on on every shirt. We have that live to fish another day, and then we do it on you know, we sell some apparel for Above the Waterline to help fund that.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought the whole thing with starting this, if I can just save one guy, you know, or get one guy to find a mission, so to speak, that'll be all worth it. And I know personally, we're at about 5 guys personally since starting. You know, so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, for me, and this is, you know, how I relate to this. When I got out, for me, the hard part was, I always thought that coming out of the Marine Corps with the sergeant chevrons on my arm and a chest full of candy, I was just going to be able to land a job wherever I wanted to land a job. And that was my, you know, grounding or connection, was getting a job, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen for a long, long time. And that was, for me, that was the hardship. My center point for coming out and trying to find balance was having enough money in my pocket. And I had all the other things that you mentioned, all the other things that follow, the moments, you know, sitting in the dark and kind of wondering what's next. And you know, I think it's something that it has a stigma. We don't talk about it a lot. A lot of us don't, you know, we don't ever bring it up. We brush it under the rug. We walk away from it. And then here we are, you know, for me, 15 years later, it's, as you're talking, I'm thinking, you know, I've been there too. Probably not to the extent of some other guys, and maybe more than some other guys. You know what I mean? But you absolutely come home, and it's not about being broken from combat. It's not about seeing things you can never forget. It's not about any of the things that I think society thinks it's about. Or maybe it is for some guys, but I think that it truly is, and you mentioned this, Dave, it's finding that purpose. It's figuring out what you're doing next. You used to be in the strong units, strong camaraderie. You had a purpose. You wore a uniform. And it wasn't just the uniform that made you what you were. It was the identification in this group. It was the people beside you. Tim and I served together in Japan. Mm-hmm. And there was a little gang of us that would walk around and terrorize the hallway and, terrorize the bars and things like that. And that was our identity. I have a picture, no kidding. I'll have to dig it up, or maybe Tim has it. Somebody has it. I forget who took the picture. Tim, you might remember this. We were in an urban warfare training center in Japan, and it was like 1,000 degrees outside with 400% humidity. And in true Marine Corps fashion, I dropped my pants in the middle of the op just to get some air on my legs, because I was just cooking. And Tim runs up behind me and grabs me, and somebody snaps a picture of that with my pants down and Tim hugging me from behind. But it's that kind of, I use that as an example. It's that kind of thing. It was funny. It was fun. These were my brothers. I served with these people. We could get away with shenanigans like that. You can't have shenanigans like that in the workplace. When you get out of the military, none of that stuff happens in the military. And there are plenty of other stories we could talk about that would be inappropriate. But but you lose your purpose. You don't have this camaraderie. You don't have your gang anymore. And tell us how.
It's because most people don't realize that it's when you're a Marine, when you're an Army Airborne, when you're a Navy sailor, an airman, whatever it is you're doing, even me as a contractor, there's very few places in the world where your job is your identity. Maybe police, firefighter, but I mean, you never see like, I'm a postal worker, and you're just like, all the postal workers are hanging out together, and you're just like, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody else's profession.
No, it makes sense.
That's what it is. So when you remove that identity from the individual, well, you have a loss of self.
Right.
Like, who am I now? What am I? And that's what I mean by finding that mission, finding that purpose. And we spoke earlier, like, what do you do when you get off the boat?
Right.
If I was just to run fishing tournaments and take guys fishing, well, to be honest, there's 1,000 different charities out there that do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to work to is I'm going to do the fishing trips and fishing tournaments to help fund what I call Camp Waterline, and that's purchasing a piece of property and putting up some cabins and sort of creating a place where these veterans can come to. What's that?
A haven.
Yeah, a haven where it's run by veterans for veterans, and then we can run these fishing trips and these week-long excursions using the outdoors as the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also going to invite people in to speak that time. Whether it's guys from the VA, whether it's disabled American veterans, whether it's entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, whether it's financial guys. That's why I said when you're in the military, you get inundated with all these different things. You got your financial guys coming in, you got your, you name it. They're teaching you about everything that they could possibly teach you out there in the world. Mm-hmm. And I want to create a place where those veterans can have that haven where they can be around other veterans. If somebody wants to drop their pants and take pictures, like, it's accepted, but at the same time, you're going to get something out,
Right.
Well, if you ever get that, maybe Matt and I could come out. We'll do a live podcast and we'll reenact that moment in time.
It is a great example of the shenanigans that happened in the military. And again, I mentioned this because there are other ones that I cannot mention.
Yeah, a little more safe for work. Yeah,
right. But those are the things that those things happened in the military. They don't happen anywhere else. They're funny. They're silly. They are people that you trust. And you
most
take these
of the time,
memories. Yeah.
Sorry. I was gonna say, and most of the time when you're out there, it's hotter than you ever imagined humanly possible. It's humid. I know the day I stepped off the plane over in the Middle East, walking through that threshold, a wall of heat that I had never felt before. No humidity, just this unimaginable level of heat hit me. When you're in those sort of situations and everybody, the suck, as people call it, when you're in that suck and everything just, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst. You need those moments to get you through. And it's those moments that people remember, people remember some of the bad things, but there's also those small little moments in time that something goofy happens or somebody said something or did something, and it gets everybody through that day.
Yep. And it's when you're carrying around 100 pounds of gear on your back, and in urban warfare training, I'm sure we can all
That's he's a busy man,
right? Multitasking.
Yes, sir.
We can all talk about urban warfare training, or doing some of that shoot and move training where you're up and down and up and down and up and down, and you're crouching and you're kneeling and you're standing up, and you've got a full combat load. You got a weapon on you. Let's assume that maybe you're an A gunner for a machine gun team, or you're carrying the saw, you're carrying a 240 or something like that. Man, no matter where you go in the Marine Corps, especially, my son always asks me, like, well, where'd you go? I'm like, we never went anywhere that was like really nice or anything like that. It was always either hot and dry or hot and muggy. You're either in the forest, in the jungle, in Japan, or like we did some training stuff in Guam one time, or you are in the desert and there's a sandstorm. It feels like somebody just opened the oven. You know what I mean? Or it's freezing cold. That's the other one. It's freezing cold. There's never any hospitable time. So you have to find. I always used to joke around, like the Marines have the rock game. Let's put a helmet out, or a can out, or Kevlar or something like that, and try to throw rocks in it. That's how we pass the time. For hours and hours on end, these guys would sit there trying to make a rock in the helmet. It's the Marine Corps rock game.
Yep.
But it is. It's you create these memories out of necessity. You create these bonds with people that you might not ever have again. And then when you get out, you are released from that family. I've used this analogy, Dave. Maybe you've heard it on some of these podcasts. I always talk about how it's like being in a room or being locked in a cage with all your buddies. You got all your stuff on the wall. You got everything, your doctrine, the way you behave, your uniforms, the clothes you wear, everything and all your friends are in this room. And then one day that door opens up, and somebody says, all right, get out. And they've tried to talk to you about what to do next, about what it looks like to get out. They've tried to have that conversation with you, but nothing compares to when you actually step foot out that door. And now you are without all of those things that are left in that room. Now you're without all of those people. You can talk to them on the phone from time to time, but you're not part of the gang anymore. It's not your crew. And so you come home to your wife or girlfriend or your friends. In a lot of cases, your friends are doing the same stuff they were doing before you went in the military. You don't identify with them. You don't identify with your spouse. You don't identify with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever you got. You don't identify with your parents, your siblings, etc. And then we are kind of expected in many cases to figure it out. And I think a lot of us have to figure it out, but I think I applaud you for what you're doing here, Dave. And I think that it's the reason why we have this podcast. It's the reason why you're doing what you're doing, is because there's not an answer. There's no playbook for this. Maybe we can create the playbook. But you're right. If we help one person,
Yeah, that's what we're, I told you last night, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a vision,
but you're doing it.
I've expressed that vision to several, so the little jersey I'm wearing, we sponsor a pro fishing team, Save the 22 fishing team. They're on the Crappie Masters Tour. Both individuals, disabled veterans, combat veterans, Army guys. We have local veterans around here: Scott Furman, Shan Willis, Doug Ralph, Air Force, Marines. I've got a guy, Kevin Courts, down in Florida. He's always pounding the ground for us and just getting the word out there. And every one of those guys has said, this is something. We just had a guy, a junior Shriner. He's a Army combat veteran. He just walked 58 miles in West Virginia and got people to pledge money. He walked to one lake one day, fished for a little bit, and then walked to the next lake for the fishing for mission, just to get the word out there with above the waterline gear on.
Yep.
And it's things like, and if I don't mind, this is what keeps me going is, and I hope he's okay with me. I'll just say one little thing. He sent me a text, and it just says, I have to tell you, I know that we've never met. I found out about you and BTFU at Above the Waterline through Justin, which Justin is one of the pro fishermen there. And I was in a very dark place. But between Justin and Derek and my absolute love for what you're doing, it has saved me. I'm in the best place I have been in 20 years. That's these guys. And this is the thing, finding a mission. If this organically becomes the mission, is just this, then score, touchdown. So yeah, we're working towards, right now we're on BTFU's page. There's a page for Above the Waterline, and we're selling some gear to help fund this. And then once we get some funding, we'll create an organic website for Above the Waterline. Once that's there, we'll start chiseling away at this. And in the end, we hope to hopefully have Camp Waterline, which would, you heard me yell to Frank there a second ago. My neighbor here, he's a Vietnam vet. We're working on an old sawmill on the backside of here.
Okay.
We were gifted a sawmill. I call it Operation Buzzkill, and we're gonna have the veterans come out and help mill the wood for these cabins, and we'll build our own cabins. But we're taught in the military to be self-sufficient,
right.
Improvise, adapt, overcome. That's the hardest thing to do in this world, in the way 501(c)(3)s and nonprofits are set up, because you're set up to go put your hand out.
Right.
I'm coming to understand we need help like that, but at the same time, I'm not relying on that. We're going to build this ourselves, whether, the group of veterans comes out and we cut our own trees and mill our own wood and build this cabin, and, we're going to get it done.
Yeah. Well, you have to. You just mentioned something that I've come to learn, because I've pondered starting nonprofits before, and there have been a handful that I've worked with here in the Cincinnati area that I thought had a really good mission, but what it ended up being every year was, hey, we need another grant. We need another grant. And they'd come back and knock on the door. We need another $1 million, another $1 million, which $1 million, as we know, like in your situation, $1 million would be amazing, right? These organizations, these organizations were taking $1 million and then just kind of like, well, what happens? What'd you produce? And year after year, there was nothing being produced. And so it's one of those things where you have to have some self-sufficiency or some self-funding or not self-funding. Maybe it's self-sufficiency. It's keeping your own bottom line instead of waiting for everybody else. Yeah, you can't, because you just can't. Well, and we've seen this with COVID. We've seen a handful of nonprofits that are having some issues because their funders have bailed out because the funders aren't making their money right now. So, you can't watch it all just fall away because you were waiting with your hand out. You know what I mean? So it's, I like the message you shared before from your guy. If you can do that one time, if you can have influence on one person, I think everything is worth it.
Absolutely.
I don't think we see that. I don't think we see those stories a lot. We hear a lot of stories about veterans being broken, and that's what we see on the media. That's what people think, that we come out and we're damaged goods, and it's simply not true. It's not true at all. But that's the stigma we get. We never talk about. The media never talks about. We never talk about on a large scale. All the helpers, the people who have done so much good for this community too. And this is a community that continues to operate. The military community didn't just go away because we're not largely occupying Afghanistan and Iraq anymore. Like, the military is still the military. There's still operations happening. There's people still experiencing these things. So, I think you're doing great work.
It was, I had to go to the VA for something.
Yeah.
And I had a guy in a white lab coat, doctor, who, you know, you could tell had never served a day in his life. And he comes and stands in front of me. And I was there for a completely different reason. And he goes, "Oh, you must have PTSD." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you spent a lot of time in Afghanistan." And I said, "No, that's not why I'm here." You know, well, and that's all he wanted to talk about was PTSD, PTSD. You got to have this. And I'm like, this guy knows nothing. And this was at the time where I was going through, you know, a lot of my recovery and surgeries. And I'm going, you know nothing about me. You know, you literally know nothing about me.
Yeah.
The brother that calls me and came up here on the weekend to stay with me, he's the guy that's better diagnosing me than this. And I was fortunate enough in the State Department to work in small teams, and I got to see, like, we spent a lot of time together. You know, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, roughly we were only home 30 to 60 days out of the year,
Right.
depending on where your leave fell in and stuff. So you were doing something good, then the rest of the team was like, "Teach me. What are you doing? You putting your Roth IRAs together. You're fully funding your retirement. You're doing it, you know." And on the same side, you do something stupid, man, these guys called you right out.
Right.
You know. And in the veteran community, I think there's a very blunt way that we can talk to each other, you know, without being. It's not insensitive. It's in tone with what we've dealt with.
Yeah.
So when you get this camaraderie going, and the guy goes, you know, I want to end it all, this and that, and you get one guy to look at you and go, "Are you stupid?" You know, like, look at, you know, knock it off. Look at what you got, and we can chisel this away. You know, I know my guys get in me all the time. This is a very frustrating process of, you know, it's hard enough to start your own business, especially in, like you said, Matt, 2020 and COVID and all this stuff. I decided to start a business. Well, not only did I decide to start a business during this whole menagerie, I decided to start two. One that is a non-for-profit that helps veterans. You know, like, so I've layered it on extra thick here.
Did anybody come to you and tell you, "What are you, stupid?"
Multiple people have come to me and told me that. You know, multiple people have, you know, we only have so much bandwidth. You know, between your family and the business and the nonprofit, Dave, what are you doing here? You know, are you and sometimes I think about that myself. I'm like, am I overstraining myself? Do I just do this? Do I just do that? But I mean, ultimately, it's like that message. You know, yesterday we received 3 checks in the mail from Justin doing his walk that other people were gracious enough to put a couple $100 in some checks. You know, I mean, that means, like Matt, like you said, some charities are dealing with millions of dollars. We're dealing nowhere near that. You know, this is mostly self-funded by veterans, and it's a core group of people that are there, and we're starting to get the attention of some. You know, we recently got mentioned in the VFW magazine.
Awesome.
That's brought some attention. You know, so it's just the more people we get in front of to talk about this mission, the more people that want to get involved, whether it's financially or tangibly. You know.
Well, I'm looking at your site. I have your website up here on the bottom of the screen. It's btfu/usa.com. I'm sorry, not slash, but -usa.com. This is where you can find all the apparel. You have that seasonal buck hunter shirt out with the camo lettering and the buck the F up. So I like the fact that you're doing something for deer season. Obviously, a lot of deer hunters out there. So people can go here. They can purchase the apparel. Also, there is a link to the Above the Waterline page you have attached to this site. Like you said, as that begins to grow, you're going to build its own website. It's going to have its own living space where people can go. But right now, people can go to info@abovethewaterline.org to find out more. ask the questions. Dave, I just wanted to say what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. I hope nothing but success for you continues to happen. Really look forward to hearing more about Camp Waterline. I'm going to throw this out here. I used to do electrical work. If you need some electrical work done, I can maybe make a weekend trip out there and help you out. When we start building these cabins.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll have to put some fishing in there too. It's not all work. We got to have some play in there too.
Yeah. And one last thing, I kind of wanted to. This kind of came across my head earlier while we were talking. You talked about taking these guys out on the boats, doing these days of fishing, and then it's what happens after you get off the boat. I think a great way to possibly keep people engaged is maybe look at adding like a form to your website or a chat, something that these people maybe I went out on a fishing trip back in March, and you went out on a fishing trip in July, so we never really met each other, but there's this form on your page. I get on there and check every couple days. You get on there and check every couple days, and I'm on there saying, hey man, work's really stressing me out. My girlfriend broke up with me. I'm really feeling down and out. And despite the fact you and I never went on the fishing trip together, but we have that mutual connection along with the service. Hey buddy, hey man, you need to talk. Here's my number. Give me a call. Let's chat. Another way to keep guys engaged.
That's a great idea, because we've been toying with ideas sort of similar to that, but a forum where and even you build your own little, I guess, what do they call it on a forum? Your little breads or whatnot. Your
threads. Yeah.
So you gotta, you want to become an entrepreneur. Well, how many other veterans that have gone fishing that are involved in the above the waterline have their own business? What can they help out with? You
can have the discussions with people. Hey, this is where I'm at in my journey. When you were at this point, what kind of pitfalls did you see? And if we could just help each other out, just give each other tips. And really, right. I think the biggest thing for all military members when they leave, the common thread is we've all had this sense of purpose for the past 4, 6, 8, 20 years, however long your military service was. You had a defined sense of purpose, no questions asked. You knew exactly what your purpose was on a daily basis. You get out and suddenly you feel like there's no purpose whatsoever, unless you're one of these lucky few that, mom, dad, uncle, somebody has a family business you can just go home and jump into. There's really no sort of answers. There's no sort of breadcrumbs to follow. There's no path.
Yeah. And Matt pointed it out too. Like, in today's world, as a recruiter, you're not seeing and shaking hands with people. So it comes to a black and white, and usually a machine is picking out keywords before you even get to an actual person or whatever. So, unless you hit the right words on your resume, unless it's just there's no personableness to getting a job anymore. It's just simply black and white. And that makes it rough, because after shipping out 30 emails and not getting any responses, you're going, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah. I think just trying to help veterans find any sense of purpose, not even professionally, just a sense of belonging again. The faster military members that have separated can find any sense of purpose, any sense of camaraderie. It's that first step into a safe transition back in the civilian world.
Yeah.
So sorry guys, I catastrophically lost my internet halfway through here. So
it's all right.
I'm picking up on this last piece, and that is, my 2 cents is that you got to find the network. You got to find a network. And the network can sometimes help you find the purpose, and it's, staying in touch with the people Dave, I'd love to stay in touch with you and talk more about this, above the waterline and what else we can do, whatever else we can do. I know we had Bart Cole on here. Bart left a comment here. Love to see you succeed, brother man. Bart Cole was on the podcast with us a few weeks ago on 9/11, actually. And Bart Bart works with the Warrior Reunion Foundation. Similar circumstances. They got a lot of, it's a lot of work around the community. So, staying in touch with these guys and plugging in.
Warrior Reunion Foundation sounds like a great spot or a great foundation to hopefully use a place like Camp Waterline.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, like I said, there's tons of guys out there that have nonprofits on certain levels and different echelons and stuff. So if we can just plug in that network, like I said, veterans are going to be the ones that help veterans. It's not going to be a guy that went to school for 8 years in a lab coat and now his initiative is pushing, I mean, we hear about it all the time. You go to the VA, guess what you're going to get coming out of it? You're going to get 10 different pills and another.
Yeah, you're going to get a bunch of drugs.
Right. Right.
So that's not the road. That's not the road to recovery.
Well, Dave, absolutely love your mission. Absolutely love the journey you've been on so far, and can't wait to hear more about it and watch it continue to grow. So, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an awesome conversation. One last time, if you can go ahead, whatever podcast platform you listen to us, rate, review. That helps us get into the eyes and ears of more listeners. You can follow us on all social media platforms, as well as you can go follow btfu/usa.com, and then they have the page for Above the Waterline there, where you can get more information for this awesome foundation that Dave is backing. And with that, I think the closing line this week is going to be, hey, let's all live to fish another day.
There it is. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.